Hello there, this is Mark, and I am a Sumi-e teacher at the Torpedo Factory in Alexandria. And in addition, I'm a practicing Sumi-e artist. I have studied Japanese art techniques in Tokyo. I've studied in China, and I teach at the Torpedo Factory in person and Zoom classes. But today, what I would like to talk about is a use of a painting material for sumie that is not the ordinary painting, but instead is a material that's available that I have recently learned of and tried, and I discovered it's really perfect for sumie. Maybe an improvement over some of the traditional materials, and I would like to demonstrate that and show that. What I'm talking about is the use of casein paints. Casein paints are paints that are opaque and have a um, binder that is apparently milk protein. And so they come in tubes like this. That would be about the size of a oil paint or acrylic painting tube. But inside is a paint that has a milk base. And the use of this, it can be um, in substitution for oil painting or acrylic painting or gouache. But as I say, I've discovered that they're almost perfect for doing sumie. And so I would like to demonstrate that and share that with you. First off, when we do color in sumie, we oftentimes use Marie's paints, which are very nice paints, inexpensive and water-based. They've got a little bit more glue in them than Western watercolors, and they are a little bit more opaque. Um, and the other product that we oftentimes use is a Japanese product called Gansai. And Gansai come in pans, and they're also quite good. Nothing wrong with either one of them. But we have another option available now, and we should think about using it. And that is casein. From what I understand, there's one maker of casein paints, uh, Richardson Casein, the Shiva series. I tried them out. I initially wanted to see if they were a good sketching medium because I sketch a lot, but I wanted to also see, well, how do they do with sumie? So it turns out quite well. So what are the advantages that I see with casein? First off, I think that I'm getting more paint. So while the Marie's paints are quite reasonably priced, I think I might be doing as well with the casein paints. And the next advantage is casein will stay on the paper once dry. The um, painting that we do on the rice paper in sumie has to be re-wet in the mounting process. And I have, on occasion, had some of these Gansai colors or Chinese colors, when they get re-wet, run a little bit in the mounting process, which means sometimes I'll get a little bit of a film run. I have to be very careful to try and avoid that. But with the casein paints, once the casein is dried, it will not reactivate. It stays in the paper and it's stable. For that reason, I feel that it might be slightly better for mounting purposes. In terms of the viscosity, it's about the same as the Chinese and Japanese paints that we use. It's got a slight other advantage, which is it is formulated in America, and that may help if there are tariff issues and things like that in the future. And so that it gives you a reason to try them out. You could try a tube or two and see if you agree with me. Um, And I'm going to now show you a few of my favorite colors for purposes of sumie. I like to use raw sienna for my background washes. They also have a yellow ochre that is very good. The next color that I like to use for purple subjects is quinacridone violet. The Permasol blue is very nice. There's an ultramarine color that's also quite nice. If I'm doing something bright flower type things, I like their cadmium red scarlet. I like cadmium pale. And I usually mix my own greens, but I do find that the Terra Vert, which is very subtle grayish green, is good to have on my palette. The palette I'm going to be using for Casein is going to allow me to mix the color on a kind of a broad um, area. So I'll mix that. I'll be showing that in a few minutes. I also have my water bowl handy. And the brushes I'm going to be use are animal hair sumie brushes. If you were doing casein in the Western style, you would probably want to use gouache brushes, which are very nice. But in sumie, we paint by varying the colors and tones on the paper, and therefore the natural hair brushes are superior to that. These brushes that are of man-made materials are good if you are doing sketches and things like that. But for the kind of painting we're doing, we should use the natural hair brushes. Now, would I use my best brush I have, my best calligraphy brushes? Probably not, because the paint, in theory, if I neglected the brushes, could dry in the paper. So I use one of my somewhat less expensive or older brushes for this, but it's pretty nice. So I'm going to switch the camera now and show you what we're going to be doing. And I'm going to be demonstrating with a peony today, okay? All right, so I'm switching over. And so what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be the white tube. You can order a white tube that's a little bit bigger. I don't put out tons and tons of paint. Because once the casein is out of the tube, it will eventually dry. Um, and so I feel like I put out as much as I think I'm going to need in a session. And then if I need more, I can always just squeeze more out. Uh, but but I'm going to I think I'm going to hold off on the blue and the sienna for now. I'm going to start in with the flower first. So let's do rose red, another nice color, and a little bit, oh, it's got a little bit of a very pleasant translucentness to it, translucence to it. So this is another good color to get. Um, and now I'm going to wet my brush. I want a clean brush that's somewhat wet. I've got a paper towel handy, and I'm going to load the brush with my light color, in this case, white first. And I'm going to mix it in. Unlike the Chinese watercolors or the Japanese watercolors, the casein um, takes a little bit more effort to mix on the brush. You want to make sure you don't have uh, kind of a maybe a gloppy area. But um, the the viscosity of it really ends up working very well. So I've got my white down on that brush now. And now I'm going to put my red down. And I point my brush. I got two colors on this brush. And now, for those of you that for those of you that are don't do sumie, we paint like this. We do colors and tones on the brush rather than mixing on the rice paper. The paper I'm using has not got much sizing, meaning it's a very absorbent paper, and I have a felt cloth underneath it because with rice paper, I have to do that. Otherwise, whatever water is put down will come up from the glass or the wood table. Therefore, I need that to protect my art, and it'll flow better. Okay, so I'm holding the brush like this, and I'm going to do a peony. So I'm going to tip in like so and wriggle the brush. And I'm getting a very nice gradation on my petals. So this peony is going to be one that's got a little bit of red, a little bit of white in it. And I'll start, as this isn't really a course on uh, how to paint peony, but I will say that I'm going to build in from the center and then I'm going to come out. So now I'm going to move around it like so and put these petals in. I'm going to add a little bit more of this red color is really going to start bringing this out. Now, the traditional Chinese and Japanese colors will also handle nicely like this, but the slight advantage to the Casein paints that I've discovered is that after I put these down, I can paint right on top of parts of this. And right now this is all still damp, but I can move the paint around a little bit. And once it's dry, I can paint directly on top without any risk that the paint from the layers below is going to come up and change my what I've got. So this is my peony so far. And then continue to, I'm taking advantage of the fact that this paper is going to absorb some of this paint, and I will take advantage of the fact that I I've got variation in my amount of paint. I didn't have to reload my white, but I will now. I'll just add a little bit more white. Uh, and so I come over here, put in a little more white, put a little water in with it. Another advantage to casein, maybe compared to oil paint. Well, you wouldn't be able to do sumie with oil, period. You'd have to use canvas or something like that. But there's um, you're using water to thin it, just like the other watercolors. No worries about oh, I've got to dispose of something. I've got to dispose of turpentine or something like that. And so I feel like I feel like it's a pretty good media for being able to being able to paint without too many worries. Obviously, you don't want to put your brushes in your mouth or something like that. So far, so good. There's a little nice viscosity to this, which I'm liking. I can It's a thick enough that I can kind of dab on top even if it's a little bit moist. Um, and and if I feel like I can't finish this painting, somebody calls me up in the middle of my painting, and I have to rush away to pick them up at the airport or something like that. Um, I can take what I've squeezed out, uh, put a paper towel with a little bit of water over the top of that plate, and then just put it in my refrigerator in a freezer bag, and it will keep there in the refrigerator for a few days. So you can resume the painting when your life gets a little bit less hectic. So that's a benefit also. So here's my peony first level, and I'm going to go in now and change my brush out to another brush, but one with a nice point. And I'm going to just put in some line work here and there. And because this is still damp, and it's mixing in a little bit. But in a little while, um, un, unlike gouache or the Gansai paints or the Chinese paints, this will not reactivate with water. So the time to do these little touches is while what you've got is is a little bit damp, and that is going to give you a beautiful effect. So there, all right. So here's my peony. Pretty nice, I think. Now, I'm going to switch over to the darker colors for my stems and leaves. So I'm going to use a little bit of ivory black. I could use ink. Um, at this point, I could switch over to Sumi-e ink, but the ivory black in this set is nice. You can use it. And I'm going to mix that with a little bit of a green. And I'm going to do raw sienna, and I could do a yellow, but raw sienna is pretty nice. And I'm going to put in a little bit of, I think I'm going to do cobalt blue. Cobalt blue would be good. So now leaves, I'm going to pick up the lighter color. You know, I did change my mind on one thing. I'm going to use a brighter yellow for the leaves. So I'm just going to put a little cadmium uh medium, which is also a nice color that they have. So in Sumie, where we are loading the brush with multiple colors. So we're going to mix the yellow on first. Then we're going to mix the blue. I don't want to get that little bit of red in there, so I'm going to take my towel and just absorb that off there. Okay, now I'm going to mix my green. Make sure I got a little bit of water on my brush because I do want it to flow. The paint is a little bit too thick to just use by itself. You have to have a flow to it. Okay, and I'm going to use a little bit of black on the tip. So I got three colors going on here. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the stem. Looks pretty good so far. I'll add a few little details here. I find that I will post the finished work, but I find that these dry quite beautifully. And now the leaves. We got to do the stems first, right? Okay, now just for my students, I don't want these to look like fish bones. They are going to be varied a little bit. But that's just a subject about how to paint leaves. As I say, the focus of this is mostly going to be about how this paint behaves. So I'm planning my leaves though. Now, I might, this brush is pretty good, so I'm going to stick with this brush. Now I'm going to load with a little bit more yellow, a little bit more green, beautiful cobalt color in this set. I just love the cobalt color. Uh, in this series, I'll probably do uh, uh, painting on morning glories. I'm going to feature that cobalt blue color. Just lovely. Okay, so now the leaves are going to look like this. And look at the very nice gradations I'm getting in the colors on this brush. I'm very happy with how this paint handles. Um, I think it's just lovely. And if I need to, I can overpaint too. I don't in Sumi-e we try not to do too much uh overpainting and redoing. We want to hit it once and let those colors come off the brush. Uh Sort of flowing as best they can. But now I'm going to put this one here with a slightly darker color. So I'm going to add a little bit more blue down here. I'm just going to differentiate that between that one and that one. So there's something back there. And then the good thing about Casein is I can paint right over. If I want that one darker and that one lighter, I can repaint. Whereas the Chinese and the Japanese colors, you can't completely repaint. There's going to be an issue. So I can in fact repaint over something if it was a mistake. Now, if I want to preserve an area white, you can't repaint, but later on you could go back over and put a wash on it. So now this one over here, and I'm able to maintain the point of my brush pretty nicely. I get, I'm preserving some of my different yellows and blues. This one looks a little too yellow, so I'm going to let that dry and then I'm going to drop in well, I'm going to let it get a little set in a little bit and then I'm going to add a little bit of blue to it just to darken it a little bit. This one down here, I'm going to maybe put there. I want these leaves. This is just, like I say, the subject of this is not how to paint the peony, but how this paint handles. But for those of you that might be going, oh, how do I paint the peony? I do want the leaves to be different sizes, slightly different colors. Okay, one more. I think I want one more kind of big leaf down here. So I'm going to take a little bit more paint. See, as I say, rather than wasting my paint, um, I'll just take a little bit out of the tube as I go and put it on the palette and use it up. Um, and that will work for me. Okay, so here we are. I'm doing a little mixing. I think I might even put a little bit of that black in there. And for this one, so this one, I'll go here and here, here. There's something, I'll put a branch up there to account for that. Okay, so this one here, uh, I've been yakking for a while, so it's probably okay. I'll put in just a little bit of, I'll darken this a little bit. As I say, in Sumi-e, we tend not to do that much of this, but we can if we have to. All right, so now can I do detail work with casein paints? Why, yes, I can. So over here, there's going to be a bee. I'm going to start, I'm going to clean my brush off. I'm going to put the two little eyeballs in. I'll put, I'm painting those two little antenna. They don't have big long antennas. Press the brush down here. I got a little bit of yellow left in this brush. So I'm getting a kind of a nice, feeling on it. And I'm going to press it. Well, I'm gonna add a little more yellow, but I still got that little bit of black in there. So I've got a body that looks like that. And then I'm going to just press again, and that's going to give me the wings for strokes like that. Uh, and then maybe I might put some indications of a leg and some stripes in the back. And that gives me my B and shows you that you can do a pretty nice detailed little freestyle bee. I'm just gonna beef them up a little bit there. And now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back in with my black and I'm going to give myself some veins in these leaves. And that will give me some nice motion, reestablish a few of the stems. Uh, I'm painting with these casein paints while they are still a little damp, so that they'll meld together. But if you go wrong and you just got the wrong color, you got the wrong uh, stroke or something, you can overpaint, and that is, especially once they're dry, you just paint over them, and the blue or the green or the red will not come up. So this will be my finished painting, and I'm going to sign it and prove once again that I can do some pretty nice calligraphy with this as well. I will then take this. Right now, this is paper and it's rice paper, so it's a little crinkly. When it's crinkly, it's going to dry a little bit wavy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wet this again and glue it down to a second piece of paper, and this will dry drum tight. And now the one thing I'm going to do is now that that rose is drying a little bit, or I'm sorry, the peony. I'll do roses next time. I'll just establish a few of these with a little bit of light uh, rose color in places. Tie this together, and I forgot to do the center of the peony, so I'll go ahead and put in some yellow in the center, and that will give me some nice stamens and things like that. A target for that bee to visit, the hungry bee. And there we go. So there we have a peony in the style of Chinese style using casein paints. And I think pretty good success. We're gonna see how this dries. I will post it. And and if there's something, if I want to add later on, I can add, but this is enough for you to see the benefits of this kind of paint. Thank you very much for your attention, and stay tuned because I'm going to do a series of these bamboo, orchid, probably wisteria, because I feel that these paints have some wonderful features. Thank you for your attention.